Copies of tonight's agenda and the entire information packet that the council will be using are available online on the city's website for anybody who's interested. Before we begin the meeting, I'd like to note that Mayor Becker is traveling this evening and is joining us virtually for this meeting, and she is, we can see her on screen there. I'd also like to note that we are pleased to have two of our former colleagues here with us tonight. Former Mayor Joe Dominic is with us. Great to see him, as well as former Council President Robert Wack. Gentlemen, great to have you both with us tonight.
Maybe. We don't know what they're here for.
It's still good to see you. First, we'll consider the approval of the minutes. We have minutes from the meeting of the Mayor and Council on June 14th and the closed session of the same date and the special meeting on July 2nd. May I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
There's been a motion by Ms. Gilbert and a second by Mr. Cavacci to approve the minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it, the ayes have it, and the minutes are approved. Tonight, we have two presentations, and for the first, we will go to Mayor Becker virtually. Dr. Becker?
I'm here. Thank you, Council President Pecoraro. Good evening, everybody. Hello from North Carolina, where I do not have the beach behind me, although it is right outside the house here. So I have a proclamation to start the meeting with, and so this is a proclamation to end the public health emergency resulting from the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas on March 14th, 2020, Mayor Joe Dominic issued a proclamation declaring a public health emergency in the city, prompted by the ongoing threat of widespread infection by the virus known as COVID-19. And whereas certain services and functions of city government were closed or changed to prevent widespread infection by the virus known as COVID-19. And whereas the mayor and common council continued to abide by the recommendations of the Centers for the Disease and Control and Prevention throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas the mayor and common council continued to abide by state mandated measures throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas Governor Hogan of the state of Maryland has ended the state of emergency for the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas the CDC has issued guidance for return to work, travel, and many other operations. Now, therefore, I, Dr. Mona Becker, Mayor of the City of Westminster, in conjunction with the Common Council, do hereby end the public health emergency known as the COVID-19 pandemic and return all government services and functions back to normal operating procedures unless CDC guidelines advise otherwise. Adopted this 12th day of July, 2021.
Right. Thank you, Mayor. The next item on the list for presentations is a presentation, long-awaited presentation, I think, on the Wakefield Valley Park Master Plan. And I think Ms. Gruber will turn to you to introduce the subject.
Yes, thank you. On September 14th, as you may remember, the Mayor and Council awarded a contract to Pinoni Associates Incorporated to assist with the development of a master plan for Wakefield Valley Park. The master plan will provide a foundation for the future phase development of the property so that it can serve as a cornerstone of the city's park system. It is also intended to lay the groundwork for city grant applications and capital funding requests to finance future park development and improvements. On June 18th, a draft of the final report was provided by email for review. To conclude the master planning process, Pinoni Associates Incorporated will conduct their final presentation at this evening's meeting. The scope of work performed by Pinoni Associates included gathering input from a variety of sources. Considerable emphasis was placed on obtaining widespread community feedback. The initial step in the information gathering process was a kickoff meeting with city staff held on October 22nd, 2020. The city administrator and representatives from the Recreation and Parks Department and Public Works Department participated in this meeting. During the meeting, relevant site information was exchanged and a project timeline schedule was developed. Following that, as you may remember, we held a special meeting with the Mayor and Council on November 10th, 2020. This provided the elected body with the opportunity to share its thoughts about the future of Wakefield Valley Park prior to Pinoni Associates undertaking the community outreach portion of its work. To follow, a series of public meetings were held both virtually and in person to engage the community in the planning process. The first meeting held on December 16th was intended to offer both a virtual and in-person experience. However, the in-person component was canceled due to winter weather. The remaining 2 meetings were held virtually and in person at the Carroll Arts Center on January 27th and March 2nd, 2021. Staff recommends that the Mayor and Common Council accept the recommendations outlined in Pannoni Associates' final report as a guide for future initiatives at Wakefield Valley Park. And with that, I would like to introduce you to Peter Stone, the lead consultant for Pannoni Associates that has worked tirelessly alongside the city on this journey. Pete?
Thanks, Abby. I don't know about tirelessly, but this has been a really, really fun project for us. It's not something we get to do often, starting from not quite a blank slate, but starting from kind of a very just open framework and developing something that can, like Abby said, can lay the groundwork, lay a framework for a future plan. I wanted to thank Abby and her staff, and then also the mayor and council, just for the opportunity. We've had a lot of fun doing the project and are really excited about what could happen out here. It's a really unique site. It's not something you see very often in cities of this size, especially. Just a big open parcel of land that actually isn't just kind of an open undeveloped parcel. It's got a lot of kind of opportunity already built in. So there's a lot of opportunity with this particular site. So tonight I wanted to just kind of review the master plan development, review in a little more detail the community input process that Abby had mentioned, kind of what we were able to, what information we were able to glean, what we presented and the feedback we got, and then take a brief look at the master plan itself that you all have had a chance to look at. So what's a master plan? Abby kind of touched on that, but it's not a final construction plan. It's not something that can go out and get built tomorrow. It may not include every possibility that could happen at the site. There's flexibility built into them a lot of times, but it is a framework for future funding, future planning, future development. It's going to provide guidance for future plans. We look at a lot of master plans with other projects that we do, and a lot of times somebody starts or does a master plan, and then that's passed on to the next consultant that starts a project or that looks at a project, and there's a constant reference back to the master plan itself to find out, well, what was the intent and what was the overall guidance and framework that was provided. Next slide. Actually, 2 slides. So with the next one too. With the plan, we looked at some overall goals just to kind of organize a plan. And I wanted to review these. They came out of kind of the initial meetings we had with staff, the community input, and the input we received from the mayor and council up front, and the scope that was provided. So these kind of structured the overall goal of the plan. One of the things we wanted to look at was passive park development. So what's passive? What's a passive park? So passive and active are kind of 2 ways to categorize parks. Active tends to be a lot more activities, ball fields, just a lot of activities that tend to draw a lot of people. With this park, we wanted to focus more on passive activities. That was pretty clear up front as we talked to people. So what are passive activities? Well, walking trails, just things that you can do out in nature that don't involve necessarily a large gathering of people. There is some of that in this park, but it's weighted more towards that kind of passive nature of a park. We wanted to look at access. That was one of the items that was identified in the scope and then early on. Can we improve access to the site? It does have access off the public road, but it's not great. What can we do to improve that? That was something we looked at. How do we connect this piece of ground to other surrounding city trails, to other areas around it? How do you make those connections so that more people can utilize the space? How do you restore the site? That was something that we heard a lot through the community input process. Is there a way to restore the site to kind of enhance the nature that's already there? How do we do that? And then how do we tell the history of the site, maybe the history of the city through kind of this particular site? It does have some historical or a historical structure on it. So how do you tell the story of this site? And then you know, as a larger whole, how do you maybe tell the story of Westminster? So those are kind of 5 things that we use to organize the plan. Next slide. So what we started with was gathering information, visiting the site. Our team spent, I think we did at least 2 site visits. We spent time out on the site, got to know it to some degree. I mean, we didn't spend days and days out there, but we got a feel for the site. We gathered information from the city, from the county, from state resources, just to understand kind of what's going on the site itself. And then we started to do some analysis. So we looked at some of the things that are up there on the screen, environmental features, floodplains, steep slopes, where streams are, potentially where wetlands are. What's the elevation of the site, the different parts of the site relative to each other? Where is the existing development on the site? How has it been developed over the years? And then things like where are utilities on the site? What's the ownership of land around the site, where it's privately owned versus county owned versus city owned or some other entity? Those kinds of things we kind of gathered together, try to aggregate them. And then next slide, we start actually, the next slide, it will show just an example of some of the site analysis. So on the screen, you see an aerial photograph of the site. The red boundary there is the site boundary. I know it's a little hard to see. That blue area running through, there's the 100-year floodplain. So that was something we wanted to identify right off the bat. There's that stream corridor running through there is very important to the site. So we needed to know where the floodplain is and what other resources are associated with that. And then also, that also kind of drove opportunities for restoration. Next slide. Taking all that information, we were able to put together our first, not master plan, but what I call kind of an opportunities constraints map. So that allowed us to identify particular areas that A, either needed to be preserved or B, could serve as future development opportunities. So what you see on the screen there, that green, light green shade are areas that had some sort of reason to be preserved, whether it was in a 100-year floodplain, whether there was a stream buffer, whether there was wooded areas there or steeper slopes. Those areas we felt needed to be set aside generally off the bat. And then we looked at the yellow shapes on the plan where areas potentially where development could occur, where more maybe typical park-like activities could occur. As well on the plan, we also looked at trails, started to take a first look at trails, because that early on, that was something that was very important, kind of in the minds of staff, the mayor and council, and then the early input we received from the community. So we looked at where the existing cart paths are, because there is an existing trail system on the site that's used widely by city residents. So where are those cart paths? Where are opportunities to maybe consolidate? For instance, the stream crossings, can we consolidate those so we don't have so many? Where does it make sense to consolidate those? Where should we follow the cart paths? Where should we maybe go off of the existing cart paths and develop a new trail? Where do we need to make connections where there currently aren't connections? So we kind of worked through all that and put this plan together. And then this was presented at the first public input meeting that we had back in December to try to start obtaining input from the city residents. So next slide. So we went through a whole series of community input meetings, like Abby said, and used various tools to gather input. The first meeting, we developed a series of photo boards to just start to trigger input from people as far as different preferences for park activities or important areas of the Wakefield Valley site. things that people felt were important about that particular site that we, as a design team, and with Rec and Park staff, could start to put together and start to kind of direct the master plan in one way or another. We reviewed those opportunities and constraints kind of upfront, and just to let folks know that, okay, here's an opportunity, here's why we're looking at this particular area, or why we may look at this particular area as we develop the plan further. One of the things we looked at during this meeting, or that we talked about, was the difference between linear and destination activities. So linear activity is more oriented towards a trail, like riding a bike, running, walking, hiking, cross-country skiing, whatever, those types of things, or they tend to maybe be more solitary or more small groups. And a destination activity would maybe be more like a ball field or a playground where you draw a lot of people into it. And we used that to start to organize the plan as we went through. Then we went on to our second meeting, which was in, go ahead, next slide, in January. And at that time presented kind of our first pass at a master plan. So we developed an opportunities constraints map. We'd gotten input from staff, or well, from the public, and then started to put together that first pass at a master plan. We talked about a couple of things at that meeting. One was, some of this was based on input that we received in the first meeting. One thing that we tried to do is help people understand what the scale of the park is. It's not a small little park. It's a big piece of property. It's 187 acres. And we presented this exhibit, which just tries to give people an idea of kind of how long the property is. So the circles on the plan represent different distances. I think we went from 750 feet on the innermost circle, and then to 1,500 feet, 3,000 feet, and 4,000 feet. So from one end to the other, the park is over 6,000 feet. It's over a mile long from one end to the other. I mean, it's not a regular safe piece of property, but it's big. So when people are worried about kind of the mix of activities, we're trying to help people understand it's a big piece of property. There's a lot of space to accommodate kind of a lot of trails, but also some ball fields and some more intense, typical park-like activities. We also wanted folks to start to understand, or we presented kind of the need to look at proximity and adjacency of different activities. So certain activities have to go with other types of activities. Generally, you've got the center of the park centered around the two existing buildings in the parking lot. And most people, you're not going to put a ball field all the way to the other end of the park and have people park in a parking lot. You're going to locate ball fields and playgrounds and things like that near that parking area. So there's certain things that have to be next to others. I'm just trying to help folks understand that. And then we also looked at park areas, tried to kind of break the park up into what we call neighborhoods. So different areas where you've got the eastern side of the park, on the other side of Tahoma Farm Road, you've got the park core, you've got the stream valley, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a big site. And then we started to get some additional input. So different from the first meeting, but we presented the initial master plan and then asked folks, well, when you're looking at this first plan, what's a change that you would make? Just one change you'd make, and then why would you make the change? Does this iteration achieve the highest priorities that were presented at meeting one? And then just asking people to kind of think outside the box. What's something that the community would benefit for 25 years down the road that could be done here at Wakefield Valley Park? So just trying to get input on different topics. And we got a lot of input, a lot of helpful input as we went through this that also helped to kind of solidify the direction that we were going with the plan. Next slide. The last meeting in March, we had revised the plan based on the input that we got. And the main goal of this meeting was to go through the phasing or to start to gather input about the phasing of the park so that we could prioritize kind of which phases should be done before other phases. Obviously, it's a big park. It's not all going to be done at once. So how do we organize a phasing plan? What are the priorities that folks have? We also tried to address some specific concerns that came up during the initial meeting, or the second meeting when we presented the initial master plan. There were some specific current concerns raised. One of them was some baseball fields that have been located near Blue Swallow Court. So we looked at that, and in talking with Rec and Park staff, we were able to come up with a solution that addressed that. There was some concern about the scope and size of the proposed event venue. So we tried to address kind of what the plan was for that. We weren't looking at a Merriweather Post Pavilion or a Wolf Trap. It was a small community-based type facility. Site access was brought up. There was a lot of discussion about site access, how you access the site, how do you approve that. So we worked through some of that in that meeting. And then got into the input that folks had on phasing and priorities. Next slide. So based on all that input and the feedback that we got, we put together a final master plan. It has a lot of different components, but mainly is organized around a trail system kind of throughout the whole park, restoration of the stream corridor and some reforestation areas throughout the site. And then a park core kind of centered around the existing parking lot and the existing buildings. And the park core contains a lot of different things, but 3 or 4 ball fields were envisioned there. Just multi-purpose fields that could be used for football, field hockey, whatever, not lighted fields, but just ball fields that could be used for organized or unorganized play. Some playgrounds in that area, a number of pavilions, including some larger pavilions that could be rented out. And then an event venue kind of centered or behind the existing clubhouse, kind of on that the existing fairway that runs out to the south from that clubhouse. And then overall, some transportation type improvements with some smaller satellite parking lots, and then ultimately a new access off of Tahoma Farm Road. And there's a lot of other smaller details there, but that's generally kind of how the plan developed with that core and then the trail system that runs throughout. Let's see, next slide. And I've got listed here some of the stuff that I just talked about. I think some of the other things, fishing pier, a disc golf course throughout that would kind of follow the trail system, dog park. There's some areas of the site that have a lot of topography. So, I mean, a sledding hill is not something that you really design, but there's an area that could be set aside for sledding or whatever. I mean, you wouldn't do something else on that hill, but it's an area that kids are going to use if it's there. And then looking at a potential future building site, that was something that was mentioned kind of on the master plan, just in that park core area near the 2 existing buildings, a future building. Just more not really programming a building, but identifying if you were going to do another building on the site, here's an area where it would make sense to do a building. Next slide. We put this exhibit together to just highlight the trails. So we took everything else off and it just highlights the trails that are proposed on the site. So there's approximately 7 miles of trails proposed with this plan. A lot of them do follow the existing cart paths. They're already there. It makes sense. There's some areas where you could maybe use the cart paths with minimal change to them. And that's something that as the plan goes forward, that should be looked at. Like where can we, as the plans progressed and as construction documents are prepared, things like that, could you reuse some of the cart paths with minimal kind of repair or things like that? Not necessarily tear it up and replace it, but are some of them in suitable condition where they could just be reused as is? some of them do need to be replaced. There's some areas that are not in good condition. But we looked at with the trails, generally a 10-foot hard surface path. And that's the lighter beige color going through there. But we also looked at a 12-foot hard surface path that would be a thicker section that would provide access to the city to, like, for vehicles to get to, for instance, there's a water building kind of towards the south end of the site. And there's some other infrastructure that having almost a one-lane road going through there that could double as a path, it makes a lot of sense and provides that access and kind of long-term thinking that will benefit everybody down the road. We also looked at the stream crossings. There's a number of kind of small bridges that are in place from the existing golf course that aren't in really good shape, and kind of improving those with a nice pedestrian bridge would really do a lot, I think, for the site itself. And there's a number of those. I think I've got 7 or 8 of those scattered throughout the along the stream valley, basically, to allow folks to cross at various locations. Next slide. I referenced the park core. I know this is kind of hard to see, but this exhibit just kind of highlights some of the things in the park core that we've kind of already talked about. Existing buildings, the maintenance building, which we didn't mention before, down on the bottom of the screen there. And then the fields, the event area, the band shells at the end of the event area. Sport courts or something else that was looked at, whether those are pickleball or tennis. Some type of hard surface sport court was another opportunity here at this particular site. All right, next slide. So taking all that input, taking the master plan, we developed a phasing plan, which you see here. And I'll just run through this real quick. The phasing is something that we see as flexible. Obviously, certain things have to happen before certain other things, but I think there's a lot of flexibility built into this plan. We tried to organize it based on the priorities that folks mentioned at our third meeting. And the priorities were generally trails, kind of restoration of the site, and then looking at some fields. So phase 1 is the yellow color there, and that's primarily just trail work. So upgrading the existing trail system, making some needed repairs to kind of connect things through, upgrading a couple of the stream crossings. Phase 2 would generally be focused on restoration. And the restoration is something we call it phase 2, but that could happen kind of almost attached to every single phase. It's not something that has to happen just as phase 2 is a strictly linear process. Phase 3 is satellite parking lots. So off of Old New Windsor Road on the left side of the exhibit, and then off of Tahoma Farm Road, just some smaller parking lots to allow more folks to access the site and not necessarily have to come through the front door, park in a big parking lot, but kind of get in a little small parking lot there and then be able to access the trail network from there. And also to access the site off of the Tahoma Farm Road for pedestrians, for instance, that could enter at that location. Phase 4 is focused on some of the ball fields there in the middle of it, the large ball fields in the middle of the site. So getting some large ball fields built, graded, and open for use. Phase 5 is what we're calling the East Meadow, I think is what I ended up calling it in the park area plan. So that portion east of Tahoma Farm Road, where you've got kind of a partial cart path running around that site, but not a full connected trail loop. So providing that over there, just a trail, no vehicle access or anything on that side of the road. But also there would be an upgrade to the crossing area to make sure you had a safe street crossing at Tahoma Farm Road at that location. Phase 6 is the park core itself, so more fields, some, what else do we have in there? The sport courts, I think we're in that phase. And just, again, more focus on the park core. Phase 7, the event area, it's really focused on the event area behind the clubhouse. Providing a pavilion, a band show, amphitheater of some sort, and then probably some trails through that. And there's trails in almost all these phases as well. It's not one phase, it's focused on trails. And then phase 8 would be the initial kind of access off of Tahoma Farm Road where the ultimate new access would be. So for now, just creating, with this phase, just creating a small parking area off of Tahoma Farm Road. A fishing pier would be part of that for the upper lake. And then in a later phase, I think down in maybe phase 10, actually build that access through there. And then we did have some more trails in, I guess, phase 9 at the kind of the back end of the site. If you're looking at the plan towards the left end, we've got also of the dog park could be in that phase. At the end of towards the end of the project, potentially. But like I said, those things could be, those pieces can kind of be shifted around. A lot of it. And the next slide, I think this is actually the last one. So one of the items that we had in the scope was doing a cost estimate. So we, based on that master plan, we had a sub-consultant go through, it does cost estimating all the time, and put together a cost estimate. And then took that cost estimate and tried to break that down to match the phasing. So that just to, I guess, give staff an idea of cash flow or kind of what each particular phase may cost. And then also looked at potential design costs associated with that, just taking a percentage of those. And this sort of matrix that you see on the screen just kind of walks through the phases that I just mentioned. And some of the key points, and then takes that cost based on the items that are in that phase. So that's really, I mean, that was the plan that's been put together that you all have seen. I'm happy to answer any questions if I can. If there's anything that wasn't clear or questions you had about the plan itself. But again, thank you for the opportunity. It's been a fun project and looking forward to seeing what happens with it as things play out. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Smith?
Hey, Mr. President, I got just a couple.
Fletcher, go.
So what currently in the early phases, you've got it in here. You're talking about the trail network and I know that there's some cost in here that it also talks about some pavilions and things like that. But it looks like that just the initial phases of the trail portion of it is a little over $1 million is what you have estimating there, $1.2 million with the design and everything like that. And that's to go through the existing trails that already exist there and improving them and fixing the bridges and things like that, right?
Correct. Yes.
It does it also, but it does not include the trails in that part that's on the other side of Tahoma Farm.
Yeah,
in
was
that
a future phase.
What are the trails like over there? I haven't been in there in years.
So I know it's not a complete loop. There's areas where there's no trail at all.
No, because it's eroded away, or there just never was.
I don't think there ever was.
Never was.
I'm trying to remember. I played that course a million times, but not a million, but a bunch of times. And I don't really remember how you drove around in there.
Yeah, I know it kind of runs around. So as you enter that area, you kind of bend to the right, and it does cross the stream there.
And then there's just a turnaround, I guess, right? After
Maybe
that
at
par
the
three.
very end, but then I think there's some other just kind of pieces.
So, but the $1.2 million, $1.3 million number that you have in there for that phase 1 of the project is predominantly fixing, improving, making the trail network more,
A portion of the trail network. So
Only a
could you
portion.
go back, could you bring up the slideshow again? Because it shows, that's maybe the best way to,
Mr. President, I don't mean to interrupt this.
Yes.
I was just trying to figure out where you guys are seeing the cost matrix, because,
that right there.
yeah, but I can't see that on my computer.
Dan has a
have
it's
copy.
actually in the plan as well. In the
You
master
have
plan.
that plan?
Yeah. The draft master plan document.
There was a draft master
Yeah,
plan that
something
was
sent
certainly
to us,
made
something.
available to us back in
That's-
February.
That's right.
Oh, okay,
That's right,
okay.
that's right.
I apologize. I
Yeah.
apologize for interrupting, but
That's all right.
I thought I was missing
No, it was
something.
back in
Print it out.
February,
Okay.
and so I was just
You printed?
digging around finding it. And what we'll do
Okay,
is make
thank
sure that
you.
everybody has fresh access to it, because one of the questions I had was, were there any changes in the text in the draft plan to what is now
I
the
do
final
remember that now.
recommendation?
So can I answer Mr. Kavach's
Sure,
question?
go ahead, yeah.
So phase one is what's shown in yellow.
Oh, okay, got it.
So mainly from the maintenance building all the way to Old New Windsor Road, kind of getting that particular run of the trail up to snuff, because it's not, and that's probably in the worst condition.
And it's also probably the part that people use pretty,
Exactly, right,
I know that's what I use when I'm out there.
right. So
Okay.
that was kind of the initial phase. And then I think.
And that includes bridge repairs and things like that as well?
That included, I think, 2 bridges.
Okay.
So there were 2 bridges as part of that. And there's bridges kind of in a number of the phases.
Okay.
But we're spending a lot more than $1 million on trails because the trails are broken down throughout the different phases.
Yes, that's
So-
correct.
So, you
Thank you,
know,
Rick.
and I'm sure that's in here somewhere if I dug through it to find how much we're spending.
Well, we're not
on
spending
trails.
anything.
Well, no,
We're-
yeah.
Let's be
Yeah,
clear on
true.
that.
Okay, true, yes, thank
We're
you.
not spending a dime at this point.
What's budgeted, or not budgeted?
Not budgeted,
Not
it's the
budgeted, thank
plan.
you, yes, yes. Okay, thank you.
So the draft master plan you have in front of you, the text in there, none of that's changed at this point. That's the draft, we haven't updated anything further. And when I say that the master plan, it's this document. So, yeah, they haven't updated anything yet, hasn't been finalized. But we're
So we're-
hopefully gonna be finalizing it very soon.
Okay.
So, Mr. President, what point are we gonna come back and maybe talk about
Well, that's
this a little bit?
That's a great question, and I think Mr. Stone just gave us the answer to that. So once we receive the final draft.
Okay.
I think we will make sure that that is distributed to the mayor and council and probably to some other important stakeholders. And we will have the chance to schedule a discussion at that time, where, we will be able to have in front of us, maybe have an informed conversation about it with the document in front of us.
Yeah, I think it's important, a lot of citizens put a lot of time and effort into giving feedback and attending meetings. And I think we need to, as the ultimate deciding body, I think at some point, we all need to weigh in kind of where we're at with it and all.
Certainly.
I agree.
Yeah, Mr. President,
Ms. Gilbert.
I tend to agree, and we did spend government, granted, it was not our personal city money, but somewhere along the line, it was government money that we were able to obtain as a grant to do the study, and I hate to see that to go to waste if we don't do a follow-up from that. So at least have a plan, maybe a committee, whatever it is that we decide to do it as you have suggested.
Right.
So that we kind of move forward instead of just letting this study sit here.
Right, absolutely. That will be how we, as we've done throughout this entire process, we have been open and transparent. We've tried to make the entire process accessible. And, we'll certainly make, we've gathered a lot of community input, from a variety of sources. I think that, people have had a chance to do that. And, I think that, we're reaching a stage where we'll want to have, all this information in front of us and for the mayor and council to be able to have our turn, have some conversation about this, which was, I think, will be the next step after we receive the final documents. And we will, again, make sure that we do that and make sure that everybody's aware of when we're going to do that and where we're going to do that. So we'll have a chance for people who'd like to watch us virtually or in person to be able to join us.
Mr. President,
Mr. Dehoff.
so to be clear, we'll schedule a work session
Well, work session or account, or maybe it'll just be the major item on the agenda one day.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll provide ample time
Okay,
and it may be over the course of more than one meeting.
okay,
Yeah, so.
okay, thank you.
The mayor's gone off the screen because we've been watching the presentation, but Mayor Becker, would you like to?
Yeah, just real quick. Thank you. So, I like this plan. I think that this plan has a lot of potential moving forward and is something that I've been interested in. I do have a question with the trail. It sort of follows up on what Councilmember Cavacci was asking with the trail. Sort of the repairs. We had some discussions, I know, in the past, and this would have been prior to 2019, with the upkeep of the trails and sort of some of the repairs of the trails. Are the trails going to be ADA compliant throughout the park, or are we going to look at, and is that included in that cost estimate on that for phase one for those linear trails?
So the intent was to make the trails ADA compliant to the extent possible, and we looked at kind of the actual topography and kind of the trail alignment to see if that would be a problem, and we don't think that's going to be a problem. This isn't a final engineering document that the contractor can go out and use to construct something, but based on our first glance, I don't think that that's going to be a problem to make a large majority of the trails at a minimum ADA compliant. There may be some areas where maybe you decide not to do a hard surface trail because you can't meet the 5% maximum slope. And maybe that's just more of a hiking type trail that is a little steeper than like a wheelchair accessible trail. So, but yes, the intent was to make as much as possible and make these ADA compliant.
Okay, great. Yeah, I appreciate that because I've gotten a couple questions about that from residents, and I will say that I do appreciate the phase one with the trails, and I think that might be what we would think about focusing on first as well. I can tell you within just even the last couple of weeks, there's been a couple permits that have come to me for signatures for events at Wakefield Valley utilizing that linear trail system for races. So I do think that would be one of the first things we'd like to focus on. But no, thank you very much for your report. And for the prior council for contracting with you to do that. I really appreciated the work that you put into that.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Stone?
Mr. President,
Mr. Cavacci?
just to say thank you. I know you put a lot into this. I mean, obviously you get paid to do it, but still, you obviously cared a lot about it. And I think it's a good working template for us to have lots of discussions, and we have a lot of decisions, and it gives us a pathway forward to continue to improve that wonderful piece of property that we have.
The only additional comment I will make is I very much appreciate the concept of, of phasing it over time, because realistically, and this is a discussion for another day, there's no realistic way we can digest something like this all at once from a financial standpoint as well. So I appreciate really the fact that it was broken down in multiple phases, because depending on funding, availability and other things, we could do more than one phase at one time, depending on what resources we have, either grant wise or otherwise. So I appreciate looking at that. And the other thing I just would like to remind everybody, and everybody on council certainly understands this is just a master plan. When we actually start doing the particular phases, there'll be a site plan, which will be much more detailed, and there will be changes. Having dealt with this in this world for a long time, there will be changes from this master plan to the site plan phase, but this gives us a very good guide of where we're trying to head. And hopefully, as we head through the various phases and the site plans, the master plan sets what the intent is. And that's important that we have that roadmap. So those are my only comments right now.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Hoff.
President, can I one
Mr.
more?
Cavacci?
I'm sorry. I did also want to make sure we recognize Ms. Gruber's involvement in this. I know she's put a ton into it, and I received a lot of positive feedback about the three events you guys held, and in particular about you and the way you handled things and the interaction you had with the public. I had lots of people come up and comment about how positive it was. And, I mean, look, we're not going to make everybody happy. We know that. And there's going to be people who hate whatever we do. That's the nature of what we do. But there was a lot of positive feedback, and I'm appreciative. And I think I speak for everybody up here. We're appreciative of everything you did getting us to this point. That's it. Sorry,
Right.
I'm not going to say anything.
That's right. Thank you, Mr. Kavachi. Anyone else? Mr. Dale.
I'd like to remind everyone that we have a really good track record of doing this very successfully. We did it with the Wakefield Valley Trail. We phased it. We did it over quite a number of years. We went out and got grants, and we've done a good job with that. So that's what this will be an ongoing project. And I'm looking forward to all the opportunities. And I also received a lot of really good feedback from not only the consultants, but Ms. Gruber and her staff, and how well we did this master plan. So I'm really excited about it. And thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Dale. Right. Well, again, thank you, Mr. Stone, and thanks, Ms. Gruber. As I've said many times, ever since we started talking about this is a legacy project. This is a project that is going to be a big part of the legacy of this council and the previous council. There's no rush to get it done, because the important thing is to get it done right. The city's not going anywhere, and neither is the park. And so we've got plenty of time to look at the right approach, and to look at the phases, and to figure out exactly what we want to do when, and what the city can afford to do. And frankly, and what meets the needs of the city at a particular time. And I think that's one of my goals, is to make sure that over time, future mayors and councils also have the ability to make decisions about what meets the needs of the city that they see at their time, whether that's 10 years from now, or 20 years, or 50 years, or 100 years, because it's a large piece of property, and it's going to be able to meet a lot of needs for a long time. So we've got that opportunity, and we take it seriously, and we'll take our time with it. And so with that, again, thank you very much. We'll look forward to the final report. We'll schedule the conversation or conversations, and we'll look forward to doing that. Thank you. Move on now to the consent calendar. We have 4 items on the consent calendar for approval. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Right, there's been a motion by Mr. Kavachi and a second by Mr. Dayhoff to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor of approving the consent calendar, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The ayes seem to have it, the ayes have it, and the consent calendar is approved. Now, report from the mayor. Ramona,
Yeah.
from North Carolina. Thank you, Mayor Becker.
Yeah, Wrightsville Beach. Hey, so I will keep it short. Although it seemed like it's been a while since we've met. I had a really great MML meeting in Ocean City, Maryland, with several other council members who were there. We got to attend some really great sessions, and the networking was really fantastic. And so there'll be some more of that, I think, a little bit later. And then the 2 other pieces I just want to touch on real briefly. We had a special meeting on July 2nd. I know that this was missed by a couple people in the community, because we pulled together and had a virtual meeting where Ms. Sarah Imholz was appointed as our new city administrator, who will start, and she will start and join us on September 7th. And I'd just like to again extend a thank you to the prior council for starting that search process and sending us some very qualified candidates to bring in and interview. And I am very excited and happy that the council approved the nomination unanimously of Ms. Imholz to begin as our new city administrator. But I just wanted to mention that tonight. I think we're all really excited to have her join us in the fall, since some folks in the community missed that special meeting that we had on July 2nd. The other thing I just want to bring up just real quickly, not for discussion, to just put it on the radar, but I know we've talked about it a couple times. One of the sessions I did attend at MML was about strategic planning. And I do know that we will sit down with Ms. Imholz when she arrives in September. and probably think about starting some strategic planning as well. And one of the things that I'm going to talk to council members about coming up is making sure that we get some community involvement in the strategic planning. I went to a really great session where I talked to the city administrator of Frederick, and he presented their strategic planning that they had done in Frederick over the last 2 years, and their vision statement that they had made for Frederick. It was called Frederick 2030. And they produced a vision statement of what they believed Frederick would look like in the year 2030. And I found their whole process to be really fascinating, especially the community involvement, which is something that I'm really passionate about. So just to sort of mull that over a little bit as we move forward. And that is all I have. Keep it short, and I'll go back and mute myself again.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Becker. Move on now to reports from standing committees. Begin as we always do with liaison to the Arts Council, Mr. Dayhoff.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Arts Council continues to increase its programming, and it's bringing a lot of folks downtown, and we're really excited about that. One of my favorite programs at the Carroll Arts Center is Flick, the film lovers in Carroll County. Features a lot of foreign films. And one of the foreign films that's coming up that I'm really excited about is the Peanut Butter Falcon. And that's going to be at the Carroll Arts Center on Friday, August the 13th at 1 o'clock and 7:30. We're also starting to bring back live performances, and it is quite a long list of live performances. The one that I'm particularly excited about is the next one, and that's on August the 27th. And that'll be the Eric Bird Trio. We're also working at looking forward to choosing an executive director. Dr. Judy Morley is going to retire later on in the year, and that search committee is going really well. A lot of really talented people in that search committee, and we're looking at a lot of really talented folks that hopefully will dovetail in with the excitement that we have for our new city administrator, Sarah M. Holtz. And she came to the, well, I guess I could bring that up under the Rec and Parks report, but she did come to the Pride Festival, and it was exciting to be able to spend some time with her. That'll be my report, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dayhoff. Move now to the Economic and Community Development Committee, Mr.
I have exciting news that we are finally been able to coordinate schedules, and we have our first meeting scheduled for July the 27th at 3 p.m. And we're going to be meeting live in the new city building. And it's probably going to mainly revolve around a lot of brainstorming of different ideas that conversations I've been having in the community, as well as with staff. And trying to make a list of priorities. There are a lot of great ideas, but of course we can't do everything at once. So kind of a brainstorming session of some of these ideas and the priority in which ones we should tackle first is going to be the main focus of that initial meeting.
Right.
And that's it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hoff. I have no report from the Finance Committee this evening. Personnel Committee, Ms. Gilbert.
We had a personnel meeting on June 23rd. We discussed several items at that meeting. General consensus was we will probably readdress most of those issues when our new city administrator starts in September. So our next personnel meeting will probably not occur until after Ms. Inhouse begins.
All right, thank you. Public Safety Committee, Mr. Cavacci.
Crime continues to be low. Really very limited in terms of the amount of serious issues we're dealing with. You know, the bulk of the crime in the community is either shoplifting from the big box stores. Walmart certainly keeps us extremely busy with calls. And you know, petty thefts from vehicles that are usually unlocked. But beyond those things, fortunately, we don't have a whole lot, and that's a wonderful thing to report again. Also, I'm going to parlay, if I might, Mr. President, my public safety and my public works reports for a moment.
Go ahead.
Council member Dayhoff mentioned we had the Pride Festival this past weekend. both departments put a lot of effort into preparing for that. That is not a city event. It's not a city sponsored event, so it doesn't operate the same way some of our other events do. However, it is still very resource needy when it comes to both our streets department and our police department, and in particular, our police department for this event, because of course, there's always the concern that some nonsense could happen. So there's always a heavy presence. And I think they did a wonderful job being out there representing the police department, both from the safety perspective, but they also were there as a public relations effort and were giving out, stickers and badges. And I just, again, just like I was saying about Ms. Gruber, lots of positive feedback from the folks in the community that approached me at the booth I was working at. A lot of positive comments. And again, parlaying it in with Public Works, they put a lot of effort in. They don't get quite the recognition because they're not there during the event being seen as much, but they put a lot into it as well to prepare the streets. So there are both of my reports, Mr. President.
All right, very good, very efficient, Mr. Kavachi. We'll move on to the Recreation and Parks Committee, Mr. Dayhoff.
Well, once again, I want to reiterate how much I like the master plan for the Wakefield Valley Park. We're really excited about all the opportunities that that'll bring to the Wakefield Valley Park. And I use your words constantly, Mr. President. I don't often give you credit for it, but it is a legacy issue for the city of Westminster. I think 100 years from now, I think history will be very kind to us for what it is that we've developed as far as a large open space in the city of Westminster. I imagine Ms. Gruber will later elaborate upon that we're going to have a ribbon cutting tomorrow, and we're really excited about the ribbon cutting. And I know Dr. Becker will be really excited to spend some time with the podium. The podium will be coming to the event. And we'll have a ribbon cutting at the Tahoma Farm Park for the new playground equipment that has been installed down there. That'll be at 7 o'clock on Tuesday,
And
July
Mr.
the 3rd.
Dayhoff, and I am out of town all week.
Oh, you can't be there.
I was not,
We're going to talk about you.
well, I was not there. Nope, I will not be there.
I'll be darned.
I will be there.
Oh, the president will be there. So he'll be able to spend some time with the podium, the famed city podium. Okay. Okay. I believe that'll be all of my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Dayhoff. And finally, the Technology Committee, I do not have a report, but we are going to be meeting sometime in the near future once the mayor returns and I'm back from the trip the following week. Looking forward to having some conversation about particularly what's been happening with cyber attacks in other communities. Westminster has done a lot, over the past couple of years. Back when Dr. Wack and then Mayor Dominic were here, we began, I think, some intensive efforts to try and protect the city. Mr. Davidson and his folks have done a good job, and we'll talk about what else we can and should be doing to make sure that the city is as protected as we can make it. So we have for committee comments. We'll go into council comments and discussion. Just working way down the table. Mr. Hoff, any comments?
The only comment is that I also attended MML, Maryland Municipal League, and that was a real learning process, and I really appreciated the opportunity to attend. Went to several different sessions and considered it a real learning opportunity to kind of better understanding the role as a council person, and it was a great event.
Thank you, Mr. Kavachi.
Good, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kavachi. And Ms. Gilbert.
Yes, I have a couple things for tonight. First, it has been a little while since we met, and I'll go back all the way to June 26th. The mayor, Councilman Kavachi, and Councilman Huff and I were at the ribbon cutting of Together We Own It.
That's right.
The tour of the facility was wonderful. I enjoyed Katie Kirby's tour and her explanation of the facility, which I was slightly familiar with, as I think most of us on council were. So I wanted to welcome them as another resource to the families of our community. So I wanted to highlight that. July 5th, there was a community cleanup that the mayor and I also participated in at the city park. I wanted to thank Rob Royce and Deputy Chief Gibson for organizing that event and getting the word out on the project and the future projects that will continue throughout the rest of this year and onward into the future for Cleanup Day in our community. Wanted to thank the organizers of the Pride Festival. And lastly, the one that's probably going to take a little bit of time, I wanted to double back with something from last year, May of 2020. I know a lot of times we discuss things, we vote on things, but we never really follow up on kind of how things have turned out. So back in May of 2020, as maybe a lot of people on council or on the previous council, we were talking about closing our fitness center due to a rather large financial loss that the center was incurring. We were thinking of closing it. And after an outpouring of support from the community that all of us experienced via email and or phone calls, many of us on council, we voted and changed our minds to keep the center open to see what happens. Well, tonight, I just wanted to double back as Ms. Gruber provided me with some update that I asked her for on how things were going. So based on May 2020 expenditures and deficits and revenues, back in May of 2020, the deficit of the fitness center was $149,823. This past May of 2021, the deficit was $19,172. That was a substantial change. And I just wanted to highlight that not only for those of us here sitting on council, but also for the public. It was an amazing change, given the fact that we even dealt with COVID, which affected not only gyms, but fitness centers across the world. So that restructuring that Ms. Gruber and her team did was amazing. And I wanted to compliment her. And again, Abby, you're in the spotlight. Just say what a great job you and all of your team did in changing that bottom line cost. And not only that, I think not only I, but the community and the council want to thank you for that, because what I seriously received out of all those letters was that the fitness center is a family. And I go to the fitness center now, not that I'm happy at 5:45 to wake up to go to the fitness center, but I wanted to definitely say that and thank the community for educating me on the fitness center also, because it is a family atmosphere. And sometimes it's not only the bottom line that we see, but it's what we provide to our community. And to that, I say thank you. And that's my hack.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. Mr. Dayhoff.
Ms. Gilbert, I really appreciated that report. Thank you. I think the fitness center is extremely important to the community, and I'm really happy that you provided that report. Did we mention the opening, the ribbon cutting for the Carroll County Veterans Independence Project?
No, I didn't.
What was the date on that?
We already did that. I already did that the last.
Oh, did you?
That's
Okay.
Took care of that.
Okay, well, that's an important
Yep.
infrastructure improvement in the community. And I wanted to reiterate that I really appreciated the Maryland Municipal League Education Conference. In addition to the class on strategic planning, I appreciated the presentation on building inclusive communities. And I got an enormous amount of value out of the education conference, and I'm really happy that I attended. And most of the council members were able to attend, and we were all really busy attending many of the sessions. And then I was also really pleased with the Westminster Pride Festival. I was happy to see that so many folks attended. It was packed. There were a lot of people there. And I was happy to see the council members that were there, and the Westminster Police Department and Sheriff's Office did a really good job. And the street department wanted to say my special appreciation for all their hard work in making the event a success. And we're looking forward to many more events now that we've reopened the community. And I think that'll be it, Mr. President. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dayhoff. I don't really have much to add. I just wanted to mention that if we've mentioned the Pride Festival a few times, and we thank the city staff and for doing a great job in supporting the event. And I was able to attend, and I certainly saw that myself. But I think we want to also mention that it's not a city event. It's privately organized, and it's organized by Sherry Hausfeld Joseph, owner of Birdie's Cafe, who does a fabulous job in putting it together. And of course, it's held at that end of Main Street because, as Sherry once said, if we were going to do a festival, if she was going to organize a festival, it's going to be up in front of her place.
Which is fair.
Instead of downtown where everything else is, which is totally fair. And I appreciate that. But anyway, Sherry does a great job with that. And, we're very proud that Westminster can host an event like that the way it does. So moving on, next item is ordinances and resolutions. The first item is adoption of ordinance number 936, an ordinance amending chapter 7, boards and commissions, to add article 4, Westminster Fiber Commission, to create an advisory body generally charged with matters relating to the Westminster Fiber Network. We'll turn to Mayor Becker for that.
Yeah, sure. So at our last meeting a month ago, the ordinance was introduced. Sorry, let me navigate my computer screen here a second. The ordinance was ordinance number 936 was introduced, and we discussed the ordinance a little bit. Just as a reminder for the council, since it's been a while since we've met, what I would like to do this evening is have any discussion about this ordinance, if there is any, move towards an adoption, and then appoint a commission for this. The ordinance has 3 goals. The first goal, just as a reminder, the short-term goal is to work with the county, well, initially first within the city, and to move that fiber network outside the city limits into the area where the water and sewer system is that the city has. A little bit of a longer-term goal then is to work on a fiber network across the county. And then eventually a much longer term goal move to a possibility of a regional fiber network. As such, the individuals' names that I've mentioned to the council over the last couple of weeks for serving on the commission, they are not all, of course, located in Westminster, and instead represent areas across the county who will be helpful in getting this accomplished. So I enter this or sort of submit this in front of the council for your adoption this evening.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Becker. Mr. Kafachi, you're the co-sponsor. Did you want to add anything?
Well, I think the comment I'd like to make is, we sit up here and we make a lot of decisions, things that we try our best to understand and be knowledgeable about. But the reality is we have to rely on staff often to get input to make some of those decisions. But in this particular case, even on staff, we don't necessarily possess all the expertise that we think we need to get the level of guidance and then continued interaction with some other entities. So we're going out and bringing in members of the community that have a particular expertise or a particular understanding or knowledge that we think will help us accomplish the goal of growing the network outside of the city. And there's really good reasons to do that. Obviously, the pandemic really made it crystal clear that everyone needs access to high-speed, robust internet connectivity. And, I think that while, yes, they are outside of the city, the people that live immediately adjacent within our water sewer service system, we still have some responsibility to those folks because they are on our water and sewer system. They are people who come into town and spend money here. And even though they may not live within city limits, they live in Westminster. And Westminster is more than just the 20,000 people that live within the boundaries. It's really the 38 or so thousand people that are on that water and sewer system. And while we don't represent them, they don't vote for us, they don't pay taxes, we're all still one community. And I think us expanding this network outside of the city limits is beneficial for all parties involved. And we need this commission and this expertise to help us do that. I think it's going to benefit everyone involved. And in particular, it's going to benefit us because it's going to bring a knowledge base, an understanding, and then the ability to go out and help us do things that we may not necessarily be quite as capable of doing independently. So I'm really excited about it. At the end of the day, the commission is going to help us with those things, But ultimately, it's still our responsibility to make final decisions. The buck still stops with us. I know that the members that are on this understand that, but we also need, I'm hoping we vest them with enough ability to go out there and go after it, get it done, and get this train moving down the tracks so that we can get this network further expanded. Mayor Dominic played an important role getting the first few residents connected outside. I think, are they connected yet? They're up and running. It's like 14, 17 homes, something like that. Yeah. So we've already done it. We're already outside of the city. So we've pierced that veil, but now it's time to get that locomotive rolling down the track. And that's, I think, what we're trying to do here. So that's why I'm sponsoring it, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Kavachi. Any other comments?
Mr. President, the only thing I will add is, I think this is very timely, also considering the fact that, just bluntly, there's a lot of money floating out there related to this issue right now, and probably will continue to be. And I think having a commission out there that is really focused on this issue is very timely and very important. And I would also, emphasize the fact that, one of the things that the pandemic exposed is how important fiber is to us, not only personally in our own homes, but also from an economic development engine. And the reality is, while the pandemic is eventually going to be in the rearview mirror, we all hope, the changes that have taken place in our society from an economic development standpoint, more people working from home, that stuff is here to stay. So I think it's extremely timely, and I'm glad that we're taking this step to look at this.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Hoff. Anyone else wish to be heard?
Mr. President,
Mr. Dayhoff.
Ms. Gilbert, do you want to go ahead?
Nope, you can go ahead. You spoke up.
Wanted to reiterate the economic development aspect of it, the job creations aspect of it. And I'm really excited about it. I hear not a week goes by in which I don't hear from folks who are looking forward to us bringing the fiber network outside of town. So I really appreciate Mr. Kavachi's work and Dr. Wack and the folks that have worked on this in the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gilbert.
Thank you, yes. I just wanted to say a few things. I wanted to thank the mayor for grabbing this as one of her first initiatives. And I also wanted to thank Dr. Wack for so many years ago. It was not without controversy, I'm sure at the time, but he's probably sitting here right now thinking I never would have foresaw a pandemic, and being out of the pandemic and what we now see is pretty much fiber being a necessity like electricity is. So I think all of that set us at a very great point right now to look at the future and the initiatives and to grab hold of those ideas, much as Councilman Huff has eloquently said, and Councilman Kavachi. So I'm not going to repeat any of those things because they were both right on target. But I'm looking forward to expanding the infrastructure that we have, because it will be of benefit to us in the city and to everyone, hopefully one day in Carroll County.
All right, thank you. So just a couple of things I wanted to mention. First of all, I noticed, and I'm sorry I didn't note this earlier, but I do notice that in two places in the draft, we refer to the city manager as opposed to the city administrator. And so without objection, I'd like to ask the staff to correct those references to the city administrator. Getting no objection, it is so ordered. Ms. Levan, you can take care of that. Thank you very much. And then along those lines, I just wanted to note, because we've talked about it, just within the last few minutes, that we do have a new city administrator starting, in just a little over a month, and very excited to have her. And one of the things I know that in my conversations with her, she's excited about is, the fiber network and the value it brings to the city and the opportunities to expand it. And one of the things I just want to note is that, in the language in here, I think it's critical that, while some of the language is a little empowering, for the commission, I think it is absolutely critical that their work be done in lockstep with the city staff. I think that it's critical not to get out in front of them. And I'm very much hoping that the new city administration will be a partner in what we're doing here, because I think that that's vital to the success of this going forward over the long term. So I'm hopeful that's going to be part of the latest package, as we go forward. And that's all I wanted to mention. Anyone else wish to be heard?
We adopt this.
Well, so this is on the agenda for adoption, yes. So actually, we should have taken a motion, we should have had a.
Yeah, I thought of that.
Adoption at the beginning.
You want that motion?
Yeah.
To that end, I'll make a motion for the adoption.
All right, thank you. So Mr. Hoff has made a motion. To
Oh, and-
adopt,
I'll
and
second.
Second from Ms. Gilbert. Any further discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Cavacci?
are we also, we're not appointing the members at this point.
No, we're
This
just
is
adopting the
just
ordinance.
adopting.
Yep, got it.
And this is to adopt the ordinance. Or before which we can on the appointed commission.
Right, just wanted to make sure it was clear that we're not doing that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, move on to a vote. All those in favor of adopting the ordinance, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it and the ayes have it, and the ordinance is adopted.
Mr. Council President,
Ms. Levan?
is that to adopt the ordinance as amended?
Yes.
That was my intent. Yeah. Sorry.
And email a revised version to the clerk now.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda is adoption of emergency ordinance number 937. An ordinance amending the code of the city of Westminster, chapter 173, environmental sustainability, article 1, plastic bags, section 173-2, definitions, to clarify, I think that means should say clarify, to clarify the definition of prohibited single-use bags. Ms. Levan?
Yes, so as you may recall, you adopted an ordinance last year. I think it was last year, a number of months ago, to restrict the use of disposable plastic bags in order to protect the environment in the city. And you, in doing that, were a little bit cutting edge. There are only a few handful of jurisdictions in the state that have done that. And so we were finding our way a little bit. We modeled our ordinance on the existing ordinances elsewhere, although we did make some changes to it in terms of exactly who would be covered by it in order not to unduly burden your business community. However, in doing that, as businesses began to attempt to comply, as the compliance date began to approach, it became clear that many business owners were unclear about whether their bags were compliant or not. And so we have provided an amendment to the definition of single-use plastic carry-out bag, the bags that are prohibited by the ordinance, and to add a specific concrete standard for measuring them. And then the standard we have proposed is a 3 mil thickness, which will make sure that people aren't pushing the boundaries in terms of the types of plastic bags that they might use, because many plastic bags at 2.25 mils are marketed as reusable, but they don't actually get reused as a matter of actual practice. So we've suggested 3 mils. We did some research. We have found that some jurisdictions go as high as 4, but that's relatively unusual, and I don't think it is necessary to accomplish your purposes. I will make one other comment about the standard that we put in here, which is that your typical reusable bag that's made out of that plastic fabric is not measured in mils at all, as I understand it from my Google research. That is, the fabric generally is measured in grams per square meter, GSM. And so apparently plastic fabric is equally measured in that manner. And those carryalls that you see made out of the plastic fabric are generally at least 80 GSM. And so you may want to consider at some point in the future, perhaps including a standard referencing the thickness of those woven plastic.
They're actually non-woven.
Pardon me?
They're actually called non-woven bags. I happen to be in that industry.
Ah.
That's considered a non-woven bag, excuse me, Mr. President.
We appreciate
It's non-woven
appreciate the expert
nylon.
knowledge, Mr. Kavachi.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilman Kavachi.
You should have just called Mr. Kavachi instead of Googling.
So that is the ordinance that you have in front of you. That needs just that one change.
Thank you, Ms. Levan, and thank you for this work. I think, you know, it's valuable to be able to give people more guidance on, I know that, some people are asking because, they want to be compliant, do the right thing. Other people are asking because they want to get around the ban, and I'm not happy about that. And so, I think that, we're already seeing some of that, and so I'm glad that we are moving forward. Yeah, I would have been, I think, 3 mils is a reasonable standard. I would have been happy to go up to 4, but I think 3 is certainly defensible and reasonable. And we can go ahead and, move forward with that if that's the council's pleasure. Let's get a motion to adopt this ordinance. May I have a motion to adopt this as it's being proposed as?
So moved, Mr. President. Do we need a motion for the purposes of suspending the rules?
So you need I want to draw to your attention that it is drafted as an emergency.
Emergency,
ordinance.
right.
However, my position has been, and you can certainly do a motion to set aside the rules, but the rules actually contemplate an emergency ordinance. So you're not actually setting them aside. You're just.
I guess we'll always have that
emergency.
discussion.
You're invoking.
I'll
the
defer
emergency.
to the city council.
Right. Well, I was just.
And I'll make a motion that we go ahead. And
Thank you. I was just about to note that, it is emergency legislation.
Okay,
so
yes, sir.
It'll be effective upon adoption, just because I think it's important for everybody to understand.
Okay,
So Mr. Dales made a motion to adopt. Is
yes.
there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Second from Mr. Kavachi. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Dehoff?
I'm seeing a lot of compliance in the community. I'm getting a lot of positive feedback. I think we're doing the right thing. I think what we're doing is a good thing. And we're probably going to have to tweak it and amend it more in the future because we're on the bleeding edge with this. We're leading the state, we're leading the Mid-Atlantic region in this. So we probably will have to make some adjustments in the future. We're flexible.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Dehoff.
Mr. President,
Mr. Hawk?
I've heard a variety of a lot of feedback too, some positive, some negative, and that's fine. To be expected. Not everybody's going to be happy with everything you do. But I just want to make an overarching point. I'm glad that we're addressing this because there's some confusion. So I think it's important to clarify what it is. And this is something that, I've been talking about on the planning and zoning front. Ordinances and codes are supposed to be living documents. So when we find something that we need to clarify, this is what I like to see is that we modify it to provide clarity or to correct an issue that may be brought in front of us. Because I'm a big proponent, as we're going through planning and zoning related issues, if there's things in the code we need to update, we should update them. So I just think this is a prime example of the fact that it's important that we make changes as we see issues develop. So I'm very much behind that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hawk. Is there any further discussion? Mayor, did you care to say anything about this?
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick about the plastic bag ordinance, and you all know, of course, I'm in favor of this as well. One of the things that I just found interesting about it is that I received a phone call a week or two ago from the Sierra Club of Central Maryland, who had actually been in Westminster prior to the ban of the plastic bags and were doing surveys, not surveys, but counting shoppers leaving stores in Westminster. And they are going to do so again at some point after the bag ban has been in effect for quite some time. But one of the things that they found out, won't go into all the details, but only about 87% of the shoppers 80% of the shoppers were using single-use plastic bags. when they were coming out of the stores in Westminster. I was a little surprised. I thought it would be a little bit lower. But single-use plastic bags, they counted about 87% of shoppers were using them. And so it'll be really interesting in a couple months. I don't know when they're going to sit outside a store and count people in the future, but it'll be interesting at some point in time when they get back in touch with me and let me know what the percent is afterwards. So I just wanted to share that little bit of information.
Thank you, Mayor. All right. Hearing no further discussion, move on to a vote. All those in favor of adopting the ordinance, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have, and the ayes have it. And emergency ordinance number 937 is adopted. Mr. Deutsch, can we count on you to inform the business community that what the new standard is?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right. There is no unfinished business of which I am aware, unless anybody else is aware of any. Move on to new business. And that under new business, we have approval of change order number 5 to the HRI Incorporated contract for wastewater treatment plant, ENR and Biosolids upgrade project. Mr. Glass.
Yes, sir. I'm sure you recall, excuse me, in early 2019 that the Mayor and Council awarded a construction contract to HRI to build the ENR and Biosolids project. In addition, the city contracted with GHD for the design, engineering, and engineering services during construction, and also construction management and inspection for the project. So to date, the Mayor and Council have authorized 4 change orders to the city's contract with HRI, and they total $1.3 million, well, $1,300,812.35 to be exact. And each of those change orders 1 through 4 qualified for the state cost share eligibility as well. This is change order number 5, and it acts to balance some additions and credits to the project to date. And although there's quite a few items here, I'll go over them rather quickly, and I can circle back for detail as that's warranted. But they're all, at this point, they are PCOs, which is a proposed change order. So there's a number of those that are all rather small. What we try to do is lump those together instead of coming to you for every $1,000 change to the project. Well, at the same time. So the first item is work related to additional roof drains at the denitrification facility for $3,218. Work related to a wet tap size change, that's PCO 18 for $3,238. Work related to replacement and welding of some stainless steel air piping for $3,272. Work related to additional roof drains at the solids handling facility for $8,510. Work related to installation of precast roof addition. This is a concrete roof planks for the septic facility for $12,000. Should make note of that any work done for the septic facility is 100% county funded then as well. So none of that comes out of the city's pocket. There's a credit for the temporary power as the contractor is required to pay us back for any power that they consume and power during their construction work. $37,964.23. For a material change of fire retardant thin film top coat for the solids handling building and support structure. PCO 30 for $49,180. It includes work for related to fabrication and installation of future filter number 6 box cover for $2,542. Work related to fabrication and installation of an overflow weir for $3,549. A credit for overtime inspection of $15,180. Work related to material cost differences between stop gates and stop plates for $2,828. Credit for a redundant air monitor for $1,439. And work related to installation of translucent panel frames, it's PCO 38 for $3,334. work related to the relocation of the Allen facility of piping for this PCO 39 for $4,997. And a grout replenishment budget for reactor number 5. I'll explain this a little bit in more detail right now. It's for $301,392. If you remember back in the very first change order number 1, it was a rather large one. It was in excess of $900,000, and it was related to the denitrification facility because during the construction, it was discovered that there was a sinkhole and infirm surfaces below that the substructure of that facility. So not only did that change order take the grout budget associated and estimated for that structure, it also took the grout budget for reactor number 5, which has not been built yet. Even though it consumed both of those grout budgets, it was the grout that we used still far exceeded the grout replacement budgets for both facilities. What this PCO number 42 for $301,000 does is to replenish the grout budget for reactor number 5, which should be in the next probably 4 months or so when that goes into construction. The reason we need to have that replenished as we speak is I won't have the opportunity to come back to you to ask for additional grout if for certain we're going to have some grout. I don't know how much that's going to be. This is the estimated number. So I have to have something to work on in between times. That's why we're asking for this 392. The other thing, last thing that this change order number 5 includes is a non-compensatory time extension of 17 days. And that was approved, again, back to the original change order number 1 at the denitrification facility because of that sinkhole work that I just described.
Okay.
So there's 17 days that were added to the contract because of that. So taking the contract deducts into account, the net cost of the change order is $343,476.77, with the exceptions of the credits listed. This change order number 5 is also subject to the state cost share eligibility of 53.65%. I think it's worth noting that at this point we are at 2.6% of the total for of change orders. And if we could exclude that original $900,000 change order for the sinkhole under the denitrification facility, we would be at 1.6% change order at this point. And you don't know how, well, I'm sure you're happy for that too. I'm ecstatic for that. This is a rehab facility as well. And those kind of percent increase for change order are unheard of. So at this point, the recommendation, once I get done patting myself on the back there, is that the staff would recommend the common council authorize the mayor to execute change order number 5, total amount of $343,476.77 to the contract with HRI. I'm pleased to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Glass. Let's get a motion on the floor so we can discuss this appropriately.
I'll make a motion for approval.
I'll second that.
Thank you. I have a motion from Mr. Hoff for approval on the change order and a second from Ms. Gilbert. Are there any questions from Mr. Glass? Any discussion?
Mr. President, I have a question or two.
Mr. Hoff?
Just to educate myself, being the new guy here. I'm assuming this money for the change order comes out of our capital budget reserves in some manner. Is that correct? Or how does?
So it comes from the sewer budget, but at the same time, it'll be submitted to the state for their cost share as well.
So we will get reimbursed for that 53.65%. We will get that back.
That's correct.
Okay, wonderful. So it comes out of the sewer.
That's correct.
Capital budget. Okay, just trying to get an understanding. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hoff. Ms. Gilbert, did you have a?
I did. I don't really have a question. I just have a comment. I just want to comment. I know this project isn't finished yet, but I'm quite impressed that we're only on change order number 5. Compared to other projects we recently have gotten into. We've been up into the 20s and pluses, so I think this is quite impressive. So I know you're happy about it, as we are, that we don't have to think about huge amounts of money in addition to these change orders. So I just want to congratulate you and or everyone else who is a part in all that.
So if I may mention this as well, it's not me. This is a team of people that make this work. So as much as I'd like to feel 100% of the thunder, as they usually do, this is not just me.
We'll thank them.
I will.
Okay, very good. Any other questions or comments on this? Mr. Deutsch?
President Pecoraro, at one of our earlier meetings, there was council interest in learning more detail and regarding the scope of the ENR project. And Mr. Glass and I had talked about scheduling that meeting in August, expecting that your new administrator would be on board. And we're now looking at your second meeting in September for that session. So plan on a briefing on the status and scope of the project about 2 months from now.
Right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Deutsch. Thank you for not dropping that ball. And because I know that we are all interested in a thorough update on that. And, you know, I know a few of us have had the chance to go and visit, you know, recently. I need to make some time for that too, because it's been quite a while since I've been down there. I drive past it frequently, have seen the outwards progress, but would love to get a better sense of how it's going there. So, Mr. Glass, I'll give you a call and see if we can do that sometime.
Absolutely.
Like, any further discussions, comments, questions? Hearing none, move on to a vote on approval of change order number 5. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it, and the ayes have it. And the change order is approved. Thank you all very much. There's an item of new business that does not appear somehow on the agenda, and I think we had intended it to. And so I'm not sure, perhaps we neglected to, let the city clerk know this, which is entirely possible. But I understood that the mayor had intended to appoint the members of the Fiber Commission immediately upon adoption of the ordinance. Is that the case, Mayor Becker?
Yeah, I'd like to do that, Councilman Pecoraro, if that's okay. And the names I know that I sent to the council over the last 2 or 3 weeks to make sure that there were no issues with the members that I was planning to appoint to the Westminster Fiber Network Commission. So let me go through in no particular order right now on serving on the Westminster Fiber Commission. Councilmember Dan Hoff will be our council representative on the Fiber Commission. I will be asking Dr. Robert Wack to be on the Fiber Commission. Sonia Hand, who is a senior executive at a technology company that is local, lives in Tawnytown. Miss Hand is also very active on the Tech Council. Jennifer Bubzik, Senior Executive Hill Development Group, Woodhaven Construction, and again is very involved and passionate about broadband access. Zach Tomlin, we know Mr. Tomlin from Tomlin Technologies, active in a nonprofit community, supporter of Westminster Fiber Network. And again, some of these are residents outside of Westminster, because remember the short-term goal is to move the fiber outside of the city limits initially. Mr. Ted Pibble, Director of Strategic Alliances and Partnership, former CIO, Harford County, again, proponent of broadband and connected with state issues in broadband. And then finally, Mr. Nick Wagman, lives in Westminster and serves as a White House as the Assistant Director of Design Construction for National Parks, and is a principal engineer for Wagman Engineering, civil engineering firm. And so those would be my appointments, please, for the Westminster Fiber Network.
All right, thank you, Mayor Becker. Is there a motion to approve the mayor's?
I'll move, Mr. President.
appointments? Motion by Mr. Cavacci to approve the mayor's appointments. Is there a second?
Second.
The second by Ms. Gilbert. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, move on to a vote. All those in favor of approving the mayor's appointments, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes seem to have it, the ayes have it, and the mayor's appointments are approved.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is departmental reports. Mr. Deutsch.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Colston, start off, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report tonight.
Mr. Brown,
Thank you. I have no report.
we're on a roll. Mr. Davidson.
I'd like to report that we're about 75% complete the wastewater move from their old building to their temporary location. We had to stand up a new network at their temporary location and maintain the old network at the old. So once we get everybody out, then we got to tear down and backfeed the old side. So we're in that process. We're working on a single sign-on application for our users. So we'll bring a single sign-on to them. So that login passwords for everything, but one pane of glass to get to all their apps. That'll begin in sometime here in mid-July. And then we also start the Munis Eden conversion, which will take probably about a year to 2 year conversion time. We'll have to run both systems side by side for a while. And we'll take a lot of staff time on IT and finance and HR also. That's all I have to report.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cullen.
No report this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Debo.
Okay, good evening. So tomorrow, Tuesday, July 13th, at approximately 11:45 a.m., in cooperation with Towson University and due to a grant from American View, a drone will be flown over downtown Main Street to record surface elevation, surface temperature, and surface vegetation cover. The estimated time for the drone flight is approximately 15 minutes, and these results will be shared with the Tree Commission meeting scheduled for September 8th, 2021. The soft cap happened rather quickly, so it is up on Facebook. And again, about 15 minutes in, this is really exciting, and we discussed this with Towson last week, and they are able to come out tomorrow.
So everybody out on the streets at 11:45.
Yes. Exactly. If anybody's wondering what that drone is for, that's what it is.
Mr. President,
Mr. Dehoff.
wasn't this the topic of Andrew Gray's master's thesis?
Yes, it was.
And it's
That's part of the
fascinating.
tie-in.
It is a fascinating read.
It is, and he has ties still with Towson University, and that is the big reason that we are able to have this done.
Well, we look forward to the results. That'll be great. Okay. Thank you, Mr.
I
President.
might add to that, the police department has been consulted with so they are certainly aware of this activity tomorrow, so that they don't get a bunch of extraneous calls wondering what's going on Main Street.
We will. They will.
They'll get it anyway. And it won't activate our anti-aircraft weaponry or anything like that.
We're not talking about it.
Oh, we're not talking about that.
We
Oh,
coordinated with the FAA too. That was one of the requirements that they had to coordinate with them to get approval. So,
well, we do have an airport.
yes.
Okay.
Makes sense, actually.
Yes, it does.
On Thursday, July 15th, the Planning and Zoning Commission is scheduled to hear Site Development Plan S19-2, runway self-storage. The proposed development is located near the corner of Buckshot Road and Meadow Branch Road and includes 6 one-story self-service storage facility buildings for approximately 425 individual storage units. They will also provide Board of Zoning Appeals recommendations for a telecommunication facility located at 895 Lyman Road, a telecommunication facility located at 121 Independence Way, and a building materials, sales and storage yard and contractors equipment and storage yard located at 45 Magna Way. On Monday, July 19th, the beneficial insect release will be held at the Westminster City Hall, where 5,000 ladybird beetles, better known as ladybugs, will be released. The public is invited to this event. And again, that is also on Facebook. And just a quick update, the Centennial Monument has been repaired, cleaned, and relocated to Belgrove Square. And that completes my report.
Thank you. Major?
Yes, sir. So over the course of the past 2 weeks, we did have 2 significant special events. We spoke about the Pride event and also the July 4th event. And I want to thank Mr. Glass and your shop for helping us. Like Mr. Gavacci said, it's very resource intensive. So we really appreciate your help. Thank you. As far as community events are concerned, we did have, as Ms. Gilbert mentioned, we had a community cleanup at City Park. Madam Mayor actually joined us on that. It's a wonderful event. National Night Out, just a reminder, is August 3rd. It's coming up. 6 communities are already signed up and involved in that, so we're greatly looking forward to that. On August 9th is our Shop of the Cop event for back to school. That's going to be held in Dutters Park. That's going to be in partnership with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, ourselves, and Shepherd staff. And also, we've seen a great increase in bike patrols and foot patrols, and that creates a lot of ad hoc opportunities for officers to interact with the community. We're getting a lot of positive feedback about that. And earlier today, I actually spoke to Mr. Depot, and we're going to help coordinate a merchants meeting with downtown merchants with the police department, have like some type of get together so we can talk about any issues or concerns they may have, so we can set that up in the future. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Gruber.
Good evening. As Councilman Dayhoff indicated, we will be celebrating our official opening of Tahoma Farm Park tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. to welcome our newest play structure in the city of Westminster. And looking forward to seeing some of you out there to cut the ribbon. We'll also have a balloon artist, a face painter, free snowballs for those members of the community who plan to attend and join us for that celebration. So look forward to seeing you all there at 6 o'clock to Tahoma Farm. Then on Wednesday night, we will actually be hosting an event at Wakefield Valley Park. We'll host our first night out with nature, where we're going to do a little dip netting in some of our ponds and study the health of the water in the ponds and the streams that are on the property. So we're looking forward to engaging our community in that particular site for that event on Wednesday night. These activities are all part of our month of July activity calendar. We celebrate Recreation and Parks Month and try to host an event every single day of the week during the month of July. So those are just a few of the exciting things that we have going on. And then I think the biggest news for this evening that I'm happy to share with the council is the city was successful in receiving the MHAA Grant Award. Total amounts of funding is $200,000, $100,000 coming from MHAA with a dollar for dollar match coming from the city. As you may remember, that was allocated for in the city's capital improvement budget for fiscal year 2022. And this particular funding source will help us seal the building envelope for the Durbin House, whereby we can make the appropriate exterior structural adaptations to the Durbin House to secure any water intrusion issues that we're experiencing with that particular structure, and basically mothball it for future purpose and use. So I'm certainly excited to be moving ahead with some restoration of that particular historic site within the city. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Glass.
Yes, sir. We've had a series of water main breaks recently. However, utilities quickly made the repairs and there was minimal disruption as they always do. A number of them had occurred and without any disruption at all. So I'm pretty pleased, actually very pleased with our pure water in Westminster pilot continues to operate without fail, although I probably should have said that. But we're collecting
Short circuiting right now.
But we're collecting data now and have been for the last 3 weeks or so, and all, everything's running well there. So we have a number of new projects to go out to bid as well with the help of the procurement office, and we're looking forward to opening some bids on that as well. So that's all I have. Unless there are questions.
Mr. President,
Mr. Dayhoff.
did we get any feedback on the newsletter about, we included information about pure water in that, didn't we? I didn't get any feedback.
I think we would have. I
Good.
think that
Good,
Somebody would
okay,
have shared that with us if we had.
okay.
3 of the 4 quarterly distributions of the newsletter that have already contained the information are out. The
Okay.
final one will go out in 3 weeks.
Okay,
So then the entire community will have received the information in the newsletter that contains the item you're talking about. Staff has received a couple of comments and they have been positive, but
good.
no
Okay.
additional detail.
I mean, I get positive feedback about the initiative, but I haven't gotten any feedback at all about the newsletter. And usually we hear about things that are in the newsletter. So I guess it's good. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Deutsch.
One final thing, Mr. President. This Thursday, the city of Westminster and most every city in Maryland will be receiving the first allocation of the American Rescue Plan funds under the federal legislation that was signed into law in March of this year by the president. As council is aware, Westminster is slated to receive about $15 million over the next 2 years, split evenly into an amount coming this week and an amount 1 year later. I would suggest, Mr. President, that you would schedule a finance committee meeting, perhaps within the next couple of weeks, so we can meet with the financial advisor retained to assist us in that effort so that we can begin to bring recommendations to council. It's not urgent, but time flies. We have a much longer time horizon here than you had under the CARES Act a year ago. But it would be good for council to begin to focus on how that money should be allocated, and perhaps having that meeting in a few weeks can get that ready for some further council discussions this fall.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Deutsch. And as you and I discussed earlier today, when the mayor returns, and I'll be gone the following week, and when I get back, and Mr. Hoff has already had his chance to leave town, and he can't leave again. And so as soon as we're all back, then we'll look forward to scheduling that maybe in 3 weeks' time. And maybe we should let the library folks know that we'll be looking for some availability during that time.
Sure.
Anything else from the staff, Mr. Deutsch?
No, sir.
Great. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming up tonight. Appreciate it. It's always good to see you. Final item on our agenda is citizen comments. When we invite the public to address the mayor and council on any issues that pertain to tonight's agenda or any other city issues. In addition to in-person comments, we welcome comments to be sent to our city clerk at comments@westgov.com. People commenting through our city clerk that way should include their address and phone number with their email at that time. And at this time, we'll welcome any comments from the public from anybody who is here. Anybody like to be heard tonight? Mr. Hoff?
I'll be very brief.
Could you please give your, yes.
947 West Cliff Court. I just wanted to share that I serve as board member and officer with the Fenby Farm Homeowners Association, and we've been following very closely and eagerly the information that's been going round and round relevant to the plan that was shared tonight. And we as a community really recognize the gem that we're fortunate to live around. And we do appreciate and are in very much support of the vast majority of items that appear in that plan. We would just ask that as the nitty gritty of those 10 phases move forward and actual plans for the specifics go into place, that consideration continue to be given to the fact that 19 of our homeowners do share property boundary with the Wakefield property, and we will continue to be very engaged and eager in being involved with those discussions. The paving of the lot and other things that are already there for our regular use. I go 4, 5, 6 times a week and enjoy the trails, and so we very much do appreciate those proactive things that have already been taking place to make it inviting and comfortable for our community members to use.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else? All right. That concludes our agenda and the meeting. Our next regular meeting will be held on Monday, July 26th. And with that, without objection, we are adjourned. Please stay safe and healthy, wear your mask and get your shot.
See you guys.
Have a nice vacation.